Welcome to Currently Reading, where I share bits and pieces of prose and poetry on a daily basis. Enjoy! Today's day 15. I'm so happy I'm still reading. I started this channel because I thought I'm not reading enough. And I'm realizing that what's keeping it going is I'm actually sharing what I'm reading. And I'm terrible at reading out loud. I make a lot of mistakes. Can't wait to read again later. So I'm reading again Shashi Tharoor. This is a collection of essays that he's compiled into this book called Bookless in Baghdad. That's him. And if you want to know more, there's tharoor.in for India. So I think I'm going to read one essay from each of these sections. So we've already read Revenging Rudyard Subverting Scarlet from Inspirations. From reconsiderations rather, I read The Committed Poet, Pablo Neruda Remembered. And then now the literary life. Okay, let's go into it. And I will choose, oh, that's interesting, literature, s'il vous plaît. Only because very self-interested, I guess. I wonder what he has to say. I've been to Paris a few times to write, and also was very inspired to write my first children's book in French because I swear the French know how to revere books. And it's almost as if, I know it's a secular country, but if there is a secular church, it would be the library or the bookstore. Appropriations, later on, let's see, what should we write? Not write, sorry, read. We will read. Maybe we won't read from this one and we'll just skip right to the end. Interrogations. Oh, yes. Bookless in Baghdad. So that is probably what we will read after. Actually, I might surprise you with something from appropriations. We'll see. So now let's get into literature, s'il vous plaît. Page 130. Da-da-da-da. Here you go. Trust the French. Who else would have put so much energy and resources into bringing 20 Indian writers to their country for a series of rencontres with the public of this highly literate land? At a time when readership for literary novels is dropping everywhere like the stock market index, France remains devoutly wedded to the promotion and propagation of culture, and not just its own. Every year, the French equivalent of the Sahitya Academy, the Centre National du Livre, picks one or two countries and brings a selection of its writers to the continent for a 2-week program known as the Belle Étrangère. The year 2002 marked India's turn. 19 of us. We should have been 20, but one Marathi writer, Kishore Santabai Kale, was held up by the courts after his father-in-law, another writer, brought a case against him. Spent the second half of November waxing literary under the grey skies of a drizzly continent. It was an impressively motley group. 5 septuagenarian seniors, the legendary Mahasweta Devi. This is going to be difficult for me, sorry. Apologies in advance. Janan Pith and Magsaysay award-winning Bengali novelist and social activist. The distinguished U.R. Anantha Murthy, Kannada novelist and former president of the Sahitya Academy, Rajya Sabha MP, and Telugu poet C. Narayana Reddy. And eminent Hindi stylists Nirmal Verna and Krishna Baldev were joined by a variety of younger writers in other languages. We spanned the range from the trilingual 60-year-old M. Mukundan, a product of the former French territory of Mahe in Kerala, who has published dozens of books in Malayalam, to the US-based 31-year-old Akhil Sharma, who is working on his second novel. In between were Dalit writers Bama, Tamil, and Narendra Jadhav, Marathi, Hindi poet Udyan Vajpayee, Gujarati Jewish memoirist, novelist Esther David, the youngest ever Jnanpith winner for her Hindi novel Kalikata via Bypass, Alka Sarogi, and five more English language novelists in alphabetical order: Anita Rao Badami, Shauna Singh Baldwin, Upamanyu Chatterjee, Mukul Kesavan, and myself. The list was completed by the author-illustrator pair of Anushka Ravishankar and Pulak Biswas, who found enthusiastic audiences of children throughout. Some of us worried about the burden of being expected to represent Indian literature. There was nothing particularly democratic or incontestable about our selection, and I, for one, lamented the absence of an Indian Muslim voice. It turned out that Soraya Bibi, the former Kamala Das, had dropped out at the last minute. The great Urdu novelist Quratul Ain Haider had been unable to travel, and a third Muslim invitee had been laid low by a stroke. There was also the question about what made us all Indian. 5 of the 19 currently live abroad, and 3, Badami, Baldwin, and Sharma, who have permanently made their homes elsewhere, no longer carry Indian passports. Is Indianness then a state of mind or a badge of ethnicity? 9 Indian languages, including English, were represented. What about the other 9 that figure on our rupee notes? The impossibility of doing justice to the breadth of Indian writing within a logistically manageable number of writers pointed to the unfairness of the question. What we all had in common was that some of our work was available in French translation, that the event's literary advisor, Paris based Rajesh Sharma, had considered us worth inviting, and that we were all able to get away when the French wanted us. In the absence of other defensible criteria, that would have to do. After a couple of joint events, we scattered throughout France in smaller groups, and some of us even asked to make brief forays to Belgium and Holland. But the time we spent together was among the highlights of the trip. The opportunity for 19 Indian writers to get to know each other better, to convert names we had heard into flesh and blood companions whose voices, tastes, and foibles added an invaluable dimension to their literary reputations. The literary encounters were fun, but nothing could match the joy of being embraced by the gentle affection of Mahashweta Devi, or complimenting the inadequacies of French vegetarian fare by dipping into the bottles of chili achar that Alka Sarogi had so thoughtfully brought along. If in the process we could also encourage the French public to read more about India and embolden French publishers to go on to discover other Indian authors, so much the better. The writers left France at the beginning of December full of tales of their experiences, of being received by the dynamically articulate French Foreign Minister Dominique de Villepin, a veteran of the French embassy in Delhi, whose discourse ranged from the importance of retaining a plurality of literary voices to the prospects of war over Iraq, of being startled when Narayana Reddy thereupon broke into a melodic Telugu chant, the likes of which had never been heard in the meeting rooms of the Quai d'Orsay, of Bama being heckled by Tamil expatriates in Paris for drawing attention in France to the problems of untouchability, and of Esther David rising to her defense, of Shauna Singh Baldwin making side trips to assorted French cities where much of the action of her next novel is to take place, of an overflowing reception by the Indian ambassador Svitri Kunadi, with writers, publishers, editors, and translators downing champagne and samosas, and for me, of having to juggle readings and responses in both English and French, as the packed audience at the city's Maison de l'Inde, House of India, included equal numbers of people who did not know one or the other of these languages. But the defining moment of the trip came towards the end of the fortnight when the group, returning from a reception at the majestic Hôtel de Ville, found themselves accidental witnesses to the interment of the 19th century novelist Alexandre Dumas, more than a century after his death, in the magnificently lit Pantheon. The Roman columns of this great Parisian monument were bathed in purple, red, and blue light. A military band played outside, while an honor guard escorted the coffin of the author of the Three Musketeers to its final resting place. Anantamurti, the doyen of the group, put it simply to me. The French, he said, really know how to honor their writers. And in a smaller way, ours too. Oh, nice. Merci.